deemed this a real life case of the cinematic version of the mouse that roared, that improbably won. Explain what you meant by that.
Well, I think it's a significant victory for Mayor Thompson and her resolve and the people of Broadview and municipal governments around the country. Broadview is a non-home rule municipality with 9,000 citizens, and the federal government had Broadview as an afterthought. Mayor Thompson said, "Not on my watch," and she authorized us to file suit, which is not usual. Local governments typically don't file lawsuits against the federal government. That's usually reserved to the Attorney General of the state. But we found a theory, and we filed suit, and a federal judge agreed with us. And it was a resounding victory for local rights, Broadview's autonomy, Broadview's ability to enforce its laws against everybody, including the federal government.
Huge moment for sure. That fence went up by ICE on September 23rd, so it's been up for a minute now. It was a major development that's just taken place. It doesn't necessarily eradicate the issue that's bringing the protesters there. So what's your response now? What happens now to keep the peace?
Well, the fence coming down was primarily for public safety. The Broadview EMS and fire department could not get through. If there was a medical incident or a fire at any of the businesses located behind the fence, which are private businesses in Broadview, or if there was a medical incident inside the detention center, we would be prevented from getting through. We'd have to let somebody would have to let them in. There'd be precious moments delayed, and it could cost somebody their life. So the fence coming down is a public safety issue. The protesters separately, I think, were supportive of it because it also allows them closer access to the ICE detention center.
Yeah, some people would ask, though, why it took so long. Again, going back to September 23rd, if there was an issue, why did it take so long for us to get to this point? Because it did seem like for a while that things were steadily getting worse out there. What's your response to that?
From the day the fence went up without Broadview's permission across a local street that Broadview not only owns but controls, we immediately contacted DHS. We contacted ICE. We asked them to remove it. We received no response. Mayor Thompson sent a strongly worded letter demanding that the fence be removed, and the response from ICE was to call Mayor Thompson part of the problem, not part of the solution. And so we had no other choices but to resort to court intervention. We tried everything short of filing a lawsuit. And ultimately, when it was filed on a Friday. We requested an emergency hearing, and we were given Tuesday for our hearing. And on Tuesday, the hearing was held, and on Thursday, the judge issued her order.
Yeah.
So in the realm of the legal community, that's a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah, it does lead me to my next question about communication. So many local officials have talked about a lack of communication between them and the federal government. Can you tell me a little bit more about where that stands with you all in the federal government there in the village of Broadview?
It continues. There is a unified command made up of the state police, the Cook County's emergency services, Cook County Sheriff, and the Broadview Police Department. So there's a lot of coordination, a lot of communication between state, county, and local agencies, but there continues to remain a lack of communication between those agencies, Broadview and ICE or DHS. They act in pardon me.
I mentioned the argument that you had regarding the fence blocking emergency services, but I would like you to maybe address whether there were some actual instances or examples that you could give of the fence maybe putting lives or businesses at risk.
Well, thankfully, there were no fires and no emergency instances that would delay EMS, but should or could it have been allowed to continue, it was only a matter of time before there was a fire or before there was an emergency call for medical services, and we would have been delayed in our response.
What is your overall take on so much focus, really nationwide, being on the village of Broadview over the last month and a half?
Well, I think Mayor Thompson has shown her leadership. It's a community of 9,000 people, and she was vaulted into the spotlight, not at her request. And she has shown not only grace and compassion in how she has balanced the interests of her residents, public safety, the rights of protesters, the First Amendment. And I think she's done a tremendous job, and she earns all the accolades that she has gotten to date.
And what is your message to people in Broadview who have maybe been impacted by what's been going on out there at the processing center, even if they have nothing to do with it? They're not protesters, they're not federal agents, they just live in the village of Broadview, and they've been impacted by everything that's been going on.
Sure. The protesters, by and large, are not Broadview residents. So the Broadview residents have been mostly impacted by the protest, impacted by the actions of ICE. And my message to them is their government, their local government, their mayor, it's working. The mayor's fighting for the community, and the mayor's doing everything she can to protect the best interests of the residents, their public safety, and their right to quiet enjoyment.
Do you feel like the village of Broadview has been changed forever?
Certainly from a public standpoint, in the sense that people from around the world have contacted Broadview. People have sent messages of support. People have sent messages attacking the mayor and her position. So I think it has achieved broad recognition from around the country. And frankly, I think a lot of municipalities will look to Mayor Thompson and look to Broadview the next time they have an issue with the federal government. And hopefully we'll see this as a path that they too can stand up to the federal government and file suit or do whatever it is it takes to enforce their local rights.
You mentioned something that we're actually going to address a little bit later on in the show regarding political violence. Are you all having to increase security for the mayor, given the threats that she's gotten as a result of this?
I can't comment on the mayor's security detail.
Okay. Well, in this instance, a federal judge approved the Village of Broadview's motion for a temporary restraining order requiring the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency to dismantle that fence that we've been talking about on the public streets of the ICE processing center. It came one day after, and not even a full day, after another judge ruled on the blocking of the National Guard troops that were already on the property. So these are TROs. Do you think that you're in for a long fight? What happens when they expire?
So the judge's order was to enter a TRO because that was the relief we requested. In the order that was ultimately agreed to between the Village of Broadview and the United States Attorney's Office was to convert the TRO into a preliminary injunction. So what stands now is a preliminary injunction instead of a TRO. And what that allows is a more permanent solution. It also allowed the federal government to seek an immediate appeal or a stay to the order, which they haven't done thus far. And given that they have taken the fence down, I'm not certain that it would be worthwhile for them to seek an appeal at this point.
Is that in each case? Does that stand for each case?
That's just in the Broadview case. The judge's order on Thursday required the parties to either come up with an agreed order by Friday at 2 p.m. that addressed the remaining issues of the fence coming down, the timing, and the United States Attorney's Office and my firm agreed to Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. And we also agreed to convert the TRO into a preliminary injunction.
Okay, and what if the fences go back up?
They would be in violation of the federal court order.
Is there a set time, though, that the fences could go back up?
No.
Okay. All right. What else would you like to say about this case? And did you see it ending the way it has from the beginning?
No. As a lawyer, you never know. You put your best foot forward. You make the best arguments. Certainly, it's unprecedented. A local government would file suit against the federal government. And we had to come up with unique legal theories on which to do it. And you're always a little skeptical when it comes to actions like this, especially when you know ICE and DHS are going to assert that they have broad rights to effectuate national security and a variety of other arguments. So we thought we had a good argument. We thought the hearing went really well, and the judge's order was certainly supportive of that.
Yeah. And how long has that processing center been there? Because it's the center of attention right now, of course, but it's been there for quite a while.
It has been there the building has been there for 40 years and owned by the government for 40 years. And that was part of our argument, that the government has owned this building for 40 years and they had no plan. They just put a fence up in the middle of the night without a building permit, without contacting the village, blocking a local road, and they had no contingency plan. So the building itself has been under federal control for 40 plus years. It's been an ICE detention center for the last few months, but it really only started getting activity when the president announced the Operation Midway Blitz, which is the last few weeks.
Yeah. And do you have any inclination, or are you already working on any other type of suit that may need to go before a judge regarding the ICE processing center and things that have been going on there in the village of Broadview over the last month?
Currently, no. The Broadview's municipal interest was limited to the fence blocking a local right-of-way and preventing our emergency response if required. So currently, there's no other legal action that we're contemplating.